Ricardo Chavira plays Abraham Quintanilla, the father of late music icon Selena, in Selena, the series on Netflix. I'm Denton Davidson for Gold Derby. Ricardo, this series is so captivating because it details the rise of a superstar that was really beloved all around the world. What did it mean to you and the rest of the cast and crew when you learned it instantly shot to number one on Netflix and was seen by more than 25 million households the first month?
Excuse me. Well, um, number one, that our stories, specific Latino, Latinx, Mexican American stories, have value and they have a place. So for me, that was very important. Also, the fact that I am, I think I'm the only cast member that's actually from South Texas. So being from San Antonio and all of my dad's family being from the South Texas area, and understanding the important significance of the Quintanilla family, of the legend that is Selena y los Dinos, of the music, Tejano music, understanding what it means to South Texas, to our community, it did not fall upon deaf ears with me.
Yeah, and you and Selena are actually like the same age, a few months apart, from what I understand. And
That's correct. We're both born in '71.
were you aware of her rising in the Tejano music scene, or did you sort of become aware of her with everyone else as the hits started charting?
No, absolutely. I mean, it was my father has always been a huge Tejano fan. I have to be very honest. In that age, I was interested in Seattle grunge. You know, but uh, but if I was always with my father. He was giving me rides here and there, and in his truck, he always had one of the Tejano radio stations playing, and invariably there would always be a Selena song. All the time. So, and you'd read about her in the paper about the concerts that she was doing, whether it was a Poteet Strawberry Festival or something in Corpus or Rosedale Park in San Antonio, or you'd see it on the news for the Tejano Music Awards. So the legacy and the story, the epic story that is her rise, is a significant part of the backdrop that is my young adulthood.
And you play Abraham, her father, and he's a tense
Yeah.
guy. He had his own struggling music career when he was younger, and he eventually gave that up. And then he started his children when they were quite young. Did it ever feel like this was in any way a story of Abraham living his dream through his children at all?
Well, yeah, I think so. It's this is something that he wanted for himself. This was his dream, and he wasn't able to accomplish it personally. So then all of a sudden he's got this family and he's got these kids, excuse me, and he's trying to probably keep them entertained, keep them motivated, keep them busy. And what is something that he can do to occupy their time? Well, I know music and I know music really well. Let me share that with my children. Now, did sharing it become a sort of adversarial relationship with his children where maybe he was forcing it upon them? I started out with small gigs and it became bigger and bigger and bigger to the degree that they became successful and they started creating this kind of how do you say, this iconic entity that became Selena y los Dinos, specifically with the Tejano music scene.
And the family was involved in the production of the series. So I have to give Abraham some credit here because he's not afraid to be, portrayed in sort of this controlling force, but he's also someone who clearly has this devotion and love for family. What did you learn about him and the Quintanillas when you took on this role?
Well, excuse me, I'm sorry. It's something that I already knew, and that's that this he is very much a very traditional Mexican American man of that specific generation. It's indicative of my father and of all my uncles. And it's constantly putting your family before yourself. I would say that I'm guilty of it to a part, even with my own family. And so it's throwing your dreams aside to see the dreams of your children come to fruition, to the degree that he was even, he would pack the bus. He was handling all the receipts. He barely slept. He drove the bus. He was the roadie, the crew, everything, and was fine doing it in order to see this success happen for his children, but also for himself. And it's always done from a position of love and a position of family. So for me, I kind of already understood it. Um, but what I did learn from it was the absolute selflessness. I mean, it's weird because he does seem like this antagonistic character at times, but it's like if you understand his motivations, there's a lot of selflessness that does exist within the motivations, but also a lot of selfishness as well. It's really weird, and it was really interesting to have to walk that line. You know, it's like I love my family. I'm doing this for my family. I love this business. I'm doing it for the business, and marrying those two things. It's I could see where he probably got clouded a lot, maybe in some of his decision making.
Yeah, and what I think is so brilliant in your performance is you do have this intensity. It's somewhat intimidating, but I never once found Abraham unlikable while I was watching it. And you particularly have this way of sort of staring someone down, particularly Chris, in a few scenes. Um, but it's also apparent that you want the best for your kids, and there's also this sort of jovial, loving side that we see throughout the episodes as well. How do you balance that as an actor?
Okay, so one thing that I learned about Abraham, and you have to understand too, coming from South Texas, I had a lot of resources. I had within our community. So there's an Express News reporter here, Hector Saldana, who has a ton of stories and a ton of information and a ton of resources with regards to the old days of Selena y los Dinos and the Quintanilla family. So I got to talk with Hector for a long time. And one of the things that he told me about, I mean, just specifically as simple as Abraham's glasses, that he wears. It's like he was like, you'd never see him without those. And it was almost like they were his shield or his coat of arms to kind of keep people at bay and create that, like this is my family and this is how I protect them. And I'm, and so whenever I'm dealing with business, he had those glasses on all the time. So for me as an actor, where we saw him doing that, but we also saw him in intimate scenes within his house, I made sure that whenever he was in the house with just his family, the glasses were off and he was comfortable and he could enjoy himself and enjoy his family. But the minute there was anybody that wasn't, that immediate family around, the glasses were on.
Right.
I mean, and that's just one little thing that I chose to do in my portrayal of Abraham.
And one of the things I appreciate so much about this series, it's really not just about Selena. It's really about a family. We learn a lot about not just a star, but her siblings, AB, Suzette, the parents. Um, how does working on a series like this differ than a film in how deeply you can dive into particular characters and subjects?
I mean, just just the frame of time. The movie was what, maybe 2.5 hours. The series is 16 to 18 hours. You get to have fully realized characters in a Suzette Quintanilla and an AB Quintanilla and Marcela Quintanilla. And it's the family, and so within the construct of the family, there's parenting that's taking place. And I know that my character is the patriarch of the family, and I seem to be, the dominant parent, if you will. But I don't get through those scenes without Sadie Lopez
Yeah.
being Marcela. She's this quiet, grounded, gravitational force that anytime we're in a scene, maybe I'm the one that's delivering all the lines and doing all the talking, but there's an energy that exists between the two of us, me constantly checking in with her because she's the mom. And ultimately, I may be the patriarch, she's the matriarch.
Yeah. And there's also great, behind the scenes looks at the industry in itself. It was such a struggle for them working with music labels and putting out the type of music that they really wanted to. They were sort of pushed into this box and really had to overachieve before Selena could begin doing everything she wants to as an artist. Do you think the industry still has this problem of the boxes, particularly Mexican Americans, or is there progress at all? Where are we?
Yeah, we absolutely have this problem. And there's a great example which the industry, the entertainment industry I mean, uh, Latinos, as a general entity, so encompassing all of us, we are the largest growing minority percentage of our entire community, not just entertainment, but the U.S. community. Okay. Now, within our industry, the issue that we've had is they've constantly tried to place us in a box, as you say, as Latinos or Latinx. And what we found is that doesn't work, okay? Because you have all of these smaller components to what is the Latino or the Latinx spectrum. Where we learned about that was in the recent election, okay? So you had, let's say in Arizona, in Maricopa County, okay? Arizona went blue for the first time in forever. Maricopa County went blue. Specifically, Mexican-American Democrats coming out and voting against what they had been dealing with from the reign of Joe Arpaio for over a decade, okay, and the abuses and the discrimination that they'd been dealing with. Now you go over to Florida and your Cuban Americans have a tendency to vote Republican, okay? Latinos, but very different on the political spectrum. Now come to South Texas, where South Texas has been a Democratic stronghold for years. But there were 3 specific counties in deep South Texas that are predominantly Mexican, 85 to 90%, that went red and voted for Trump. Why? But what we're learning is you can't generalize about us that, oh, all Latinos are going to vote Democrat. Not true. In the same way, within our entertainment community, just because it's a Latino story doesn't mean Latinos are going to tune into it. If I don't identify with it, if it's something that's Cuban or Puerto Rican, maybe that doesn't speak to me as a Mexican American. Okay, so you have to get specific with the stories and get specific with the characters. And that's something that they're starting to learn. And that's why we need more voices in the writer's room, behind the camera, where it's like, this isn't just a Latinx story. This is specifically a Mexican-American story from South Texas. That's what this story is. So we need that representation within the constructs of the story. Writers that understand that perspective and actors that understand that perspective.
Well said. And
Thanks, man.
I would also have to say that, you started this series before the pandemic. Were you able to get it in the can, or has that caused
No,
problems as well?
we had to take the break. We were starting. We were like, I think 2 or 3 episodes into season 2, and then we got hit like everybody else. We took about 5.5 months off, and then we went back to Baja, Mexico, where we were shooting, and we finished it out. I think we stopped around March 12th, March 13th, and picked it back up in mid-August, and then finished around mid-November. Yeah. So like about 2.5, 3 months more, and following protocols, and it was difficult, but we got it done.
Yeah. And what was the most difficult part of filming, and what was the most fun? I heard you were barbecuing on set. I heard you were on location in Mexico.
No, I wasn't barbecuing on set, but I barbecued at the place where they had me situated, and where our whole cast was situated. So I was having them come over, and I was barbecuing chicken and ribs, Texas style, for the whole cast, and I think they seemed to enjoy it. I enjoy, not miss being at home and cooking for my kids and my family. Yeah. So it was nice. But just being there in that area in Baja, it's so beautiful. It's just the ocean, the Pacific right there is really relaxing. And made for some easy days when we were doing some of the more tense work.
Yeah. And part 1 of this series ends with a pretty heated exchange
Yeah.
between Abraham and Chris. Abraham realizes that Selena's dating one of the band members, and Abraham fires him, throws him off the bus, and he's stranded, and you take off. That ends part 1. Cliffhanger. So what can we expect for part 2?
Well, you're gonna see control that he thinks he has over his children's decisions. Going to have to come to terms with the fact that they're adults and they get to they get to have their own autonomy and make decisions for themselves, even if it's against his wishes. And then he's going to struggle with, okay, do I reject these things? Do I fight it? Or do I embrace it, tolerate it, for the good of what is our business entity and our franchise that we've created in Selena y los Dinos? And of course, Abraham, being a very shrewd businessman, is going to find a way to have to deal with things that he's not agreeable with on a personal level.
Well, Ricardo, thank you for chatting with Gold Derby about Selena, the series on Netflix. Wish you and the cast and crew all luck with the upcoming award season. I know you don't do this for awards, but it's nice to get some recognition, and I think you guys did really something special with this series. Viewers can head over to Gold Derby and make predictions for Emmy nominations and all other awards this upcoming season. And Selena, the series part 2 starts streaming on Netflix on May 4th. So thank you so much.
Denton, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
All right.